Yes, he can. Yes, Donald Trump can hold a third term as president because of this loophole in the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. But that also means former President Barack Obama can as well. I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep. I posted about this on my Facebook fan page, the African History Network, back in early April 2025 in response to a interview that Donald Trump did on Sunday, March 30th, 2025 on Meet the Press, where he was asked this question. And then a number of articles were written about it. There was an article from Atlanta Black Star written about it. And I broke all this down, how this could happen, in my post on my Facebook page, but a lot of people didn't get it. So I want to explain this to you. But to understand this, you have to understand the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, as well as the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Okay? So, and then there was also a Republican congressman who has recently introduced a bill to amend the 22nd Amendment, which prohibits presidents from seeking a third term. But you can, a president can actually serve a third term without amending the U.S. Constitution as well. So here's what happened. Sunday, March 30th, 2025, Kristen Welker, host of Meet the Press, interviewed Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, in that interview, hinted that he might run for a third term. Now, you have to understand the difference between running for a third term and serving a third term. Those are two entirely different things. Donald Trump said, you know, a lot of people, Kristen Welker, the host of Meet the Press, said, quote, you know, a lot of people would like me to do that, Trump told Kristen Welker. He said, but I basically tell them we have a long way to go. You know, it's very early in the administration, end quote. Now, he said this to Kristen Welker, and he also said that they have a legal team that are looking at different ways that he can actually serve a third term in office. Now, conservative commentator and attorney George Conway was on the weekend, that weekend as well, and he talked about a way that Donald Trump could serve a third term in office. He said this to Michael Steele. Michael Steele is an attorney, former chair of the RNC, and it blew Michael Steele away. So AtlantaBlackStar.com had an article March 31st, 2025 called Bring It On. Donald Trump's desire for a third term backfires as movement for Barack Obama's return gains steam. And in this article, they talked about the interview on Meet the Press that Donald Trump did, but also people were posting on social media saying, well, if Donald Trump can serve a third term, so could President Barack Obama. So let me break this down. I'm going to give three scenarios where Donald Trump or Barack Obama could actually serve a third term. Now, this will require going to court, and you don't even have to amend the U.S. Constitution. That is one way to do it, and to amend the U.S. Constitution, to amend the 22nd Amendment, or to amend the U.S. Constitution at all. A bill would have to pass the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate by a 2/3 majority vote, and then it has to be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures by a 2/3 majority vote as well. So that's 38 out of 50 state legislatures. Okay, so that's not going to happen. But understand, based upon the text of the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, Vice President J.D. Vance could run as president with Donald Trump running as his vice president. After J.D. Vance gets sworn in, sometime after, a week after, a month after, what have you, J.D. Vance could resign for whatever reason, and the presidency would go to Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump will become president again. Now, this loophole in the 22nd Amendment is that Trump would not technically have been elected president. The same thing applies to Barack Obama. Somebody could run as president. Barack Obama could run as vice president. Sometime after inauguration, that person resigns. Barack Obama becomes president again. The quote, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. Now, this is part of the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. You can read it if you go to constitution.congress.gov and search for the 22nd Amendment. You can read it there. So what I just shared with you from the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution talked about someone being elected as president. But the scenario that I laid out for you, Donald Trump or Barack Obama would not have to be elected as president. Now, Donald Trump has once again floated the idea of testing the Constitution's presidential term limits by seeking a third term as his administration continues to challenge constitutional provisions and push an expansive view of executive power. And this is the Unitarian executive theory that's also pushed by Russell Vance, his director of the Office of Management and Budget. And Russell Vance is also known as the architect of Project 2025. Now, during that interview with Christian Walker on Meet the Press on NBC, after telling Christian Walker that he's not joking about the possibility of serving a third term and that there are quote unquote methods that would allow him to serve a third term, Donald Trump declined to confirm to reporters aboard Air Force One on that Sunday, March 30th, that he's planning to leave the White House after his second term ends on January 20th, 2029. Now, the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution prohibits a person from being elected U.S. president more than twice. The states ratified the restriction in 1951 in the wake of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's controversial third and fourth terms during World War II, which bucked a two-term norm set by President George Washington. Changing presidential term limits with a new constitutional amendment would need support from 3/4 of the state's legislatures, as I stated before. But some legal experts point to plausible strategies for attempting runs around the 22nd Amendment under unusual scenarios. This is, even though I loathe and abhor and detest Donald Trump, one thing I have learned is do not underestimate him. Now, other legal experts, however, point to the last sentence of the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which covers the Electoral College, as a roadblock for any twice elected president attempting to return to the White House through the vice presidency, as I laid out. Other legal experts, however, point to the last sentence of the 12th Amendment, which covers the Electoral College, and they point to this as a roadblock for any twice elected president attempting to return to the White House through the vice presidency, as I laid out in the scenario. It says that, quote, no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president of the United States, end quote. Now, Donald Trump would send his attorneys to court to fight this and is going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, Donald Trump got 3 U.S. Supreme Court justices confirmed. He nominated them, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Bryant. And also keep in mind that Samuel Alito, as well as Clarence Thomas, they are 2 of the oldest serving Supreme Court justices. And over the next year to 2 years, expect them to resign. and Donald Trump is going to get 2 more Supreme Court justices confirmed, which means by the time this goes to court, and by the time this argument goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, he would have had 5 out of 9 Supreme Court justices he nominated confirmed, sitting on the bench. So it's a good chance they'll rule in his favor. Just like they ruled in his favor when it came to challenging Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of 1868, which states that anyone who incites an insurrection or anyone who's involved in an insurrection against the U.S. government can't hold elected office. Well, he challenged that. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled something that's not even in the U.S. Constitution. It's not even in the 14th Amendment. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that state officials don't have the authority to remove someone from the ballot in a federal election. But that's not what the U.S. Constitution says. The U.S. Constitution says that anybody involved in an insurrection or inciting an insurrection cannot hold elected office. It doesn't make a distinction between local elected office, state elected office, or federal elected office. But the 6-3 Leonard Leo trio, the 6-3 conservative leaning Supreme Court, ruled in Donald Trump's favor. What do you think would happen if it's a 5-4 Supreme Court and he nominated 5 of those Supreme Court justices? Still in court, a lawyer could try to argue that being a natural-born citizen, at least 35 years old, and a resident within the United States for at least 14 years are the only presidential eligibility requirements specified in the U.S. Constitution, says Stephen Gillers, Gillers, who's a professor emeritus at New York University's School of Law, who proposed in 2004 that President Bill Clinton run for vice president. So this is not the first time that a theory like this has been posed. Stephen Gillers said, quote, "I want to make it very clear that I'm identifying an argument that Trump could make in order to get back into the White House. I'm not endorsing it," end quote, he said. He went on to say, "But we know from experience that even if it's far-fetched and if it offers the possibility of a 3rd presidential term, Trump will make it. Trump will make it. If his health holds up, he will make the argument he likes the job. Whether or not it succeeds in court is another matter," end quote. Now, Gillers posits that Donald Trump, quote, "could make a deal," end quote, with Vice President J.D. Vance, that ahead of the 2028 election, they switch places on the Republican ticket, and if they win the White House again, J.D. Vance resigns and Trump becomes president. To avoid any debate about whether the 12th Amendment forbids presidential electors from choosing a twice-elected president as vice president, Stephen Gillers says there could be a similar arrangement in which Donald Trump does not run on the winning Republican ticket, but after the newly elected vice president resigns, becomes vice president with congressional approval. So this is a second scenario, and this is using Section 2 of the 25th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Now, we've heard about the 25th Amendment in Donald Trump's first term, and that allows 3/4 of the cabinet of a president's cabinet. If a president is mentally incapacitated or what have you, that allows them to remove him from office or her. So to avoid any debate about whether the 12th Amendment forbids presidential electors from choosing a twice-elected president as vice president, Stephen Gillers says there could be a similar arrangement in which Donald Trump does not run on the winning Republican ticket, but after the newly elected vice president resigns, becomes vice president with congressional approval. And this is based upon Section 2 of the 25th Amendment. And the 25th Amendment was put in place in 1967. It was ratified in 1967. Section 2 of the 25th Amendment says whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. So this second scenario would be utilizing Section 2 of the 25th Amendment that most people are not familiar with. Now, people are familiar with the 25th Amendment that came up during Donald Trump's first term, where a majority of a president's cabinet can remove a president from office if the president is incapacitated, is mentally disabled, or what have you, and refuses to step down. All right. But in this scenario, if say a vice president resigns, then President, say for instance, President J.D. Vance could nominate Donald Trump to be his vice president. It would have to be confirmed by a majority of the House of Representatives. Just takes a simple majority, 218 votes or 217 votes. And it would be a simple majority in the U.S. Senate, which would be 51 out of 100 senators. Right now, Republicans have 53 U.S. senators. Okay, so this could very well happen. Now, a third scenario would be, and this was floated back a couple of years ago when they were choosing the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and Matt Gaetz threw out Donald Trump. A lot of people don't know that to be Speaker of the House of Representatives, you don't have to be a member of the House. So Donald Trump could serve as Speaker of the House of Representatives. A Republican would nominate him, simple majority to confirm him, 218, 217 votes. And then if something happens to the president, vice president, they resign, what have you, then he could become president again. So that is a third scenario in which Donald Trump or Barack Obama could become president again, and that would be through the route of becoming Speaker of the House of Representatives. And I talked about this a couple of years ago as well. I was on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, on the Black Star Network, Roland Martin's network. And I mentioned this because Matt Gaetz threw out Donald Trump. He threw out the name Donald Trump to be nominated for Speaker of the House of Representatives. And also recently, crazy ass Marjorie Taylor Greene suggested that as well. So that could very well happen. So read the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution as well. You can go to loc.gov, Library of Congress website, archives.gov, U.S. National Archives. Also check out constitution.congress.gov and search for the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Look at articles from National Public Radio. They have a good article on this. Trump running for a third term. This is from March 31st, 2025. We'll post links to the articles in the thread here on the broadcast. So post your comments here. Like, share, comment on this video. Let me know what you think. But these are three plausible ways either Donald Trump or Barack Obama could become president for a third term. If you like this type of information, follow me on social media. I'm a historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep. Follow me on Facebook and fan base at The African History Network, The African History Network. Watch The African History Network show as well, Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my social media platforms. And follow me on YouTube and Instagram at Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Watch me every Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, where I provide historical and political analysis. I'm a panelist there. I've been on that show almost 5 years. And register for my online history classes at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. On Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, where they didn't teach you in school, and Kemet is one of the original names for Egypt. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it any time. You can also support us through $, the AHN Show through Cash App and PayPal.me/the AHN Show. The information is on my website. I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep. Thanks for watching the African History Network show. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Here at Sage and Elm, it's a plant thing. Everything is made by hand from plants, from our salves to our soaps, our lotions, our oils. Come shop our over 400 products made by hand from plants just for you, because you deserve the best.
Did you know that the Washington Monument is based upon an ancient African structure called a tekken that comes from the mythology of Asar, Arset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus? Did you know that the panther deity Bast in the movie Black Panther and Wakanda Forever comes from an ancient African deity, a neter in ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, called Bastet? Did you know that there were 17 pyramids found buried underneath Egypt around 2011? Also, the city of Memphis, Tennessee. What's the relationship between Memphis, Tennessee and Memphis in ancient Egypt? I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep. Be sure to register for my new 12-week online history course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Kemet is one of the original names for Egypt. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Did you know that the word Wakanda is a real word? We find it in the Kikongo language, which is a Bantu language, but we also find it in the Omaha Ponca and Sioux Indian Native American languages. My class starts up Saturday, March 1st, 2025, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a 12-week online history course. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. We do with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. When we talk about the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start our studying of the history in 1619 in Hampton, Virginia, or in Jamestown. We can't start in 1441 with the transatlantic slave trade starting with the Portuguese. We have to deal with thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We'll deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who take the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and this is what brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. We'll talk about ancient African empires, whether we deal with ancient Nubia, whether we deal with Kush, Kemet, Mali, Songhai, Ghana. This is a 12-week online history course. We deal with 80 to 100 articles. There are 200 slides that I show you in the class. There are video clips. There are 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. It's a very visual class, so we show you all that information right on the screen. The class is PG-13 as well, so you can use this with your children. Download my lesson plan from my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register right now. Right now is correct strong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll see you in class. Peace.
Is your child struggling with reading, writing, learning loss, and a culturally irrelevant curriculum? Do you want your child to be outstanding at reading and writing and also take pride in their culture? Then you want Reading Revolution Online. Reading Revolution Online is a web-based reading support program. We serve scholars in grades K through 8, and through our innovative approach, we help them build reading confidence and cultural identity development, equipping them for success in school and life. They learn about Black heroes and sheroes through captioned videos, reading selections, and other activities. Reading Revolution Online is an experience for the whole family. Do it for the culture. Go to readingrevolution.org and get your membership today.
Here at Sage and Elm, it's a plant thing. Everything is made by hand from plants, from our salves to our soaps, our lotions, our oils. Come shop our over 400 products made by hand